Welcome. This is Brett Johnson with OneMedRadio in New York. Today I am with Samuel Duffy, who's the President and CEO, and Carlos Santos, PhD, who's the Senior VP of Product Development and Regulatory Affairs for Tampa-based Biovest International. The symbol is BVTI. They're traded on the bulletin board. Thanks for joining us today, gentlemen.
You bet. My pleasure.
So we interviewed you guys about a month ago, and it was with regard to some of the regulatory things you had going on in Canada, and you're seeking approval for the Biovest ID, your personalized cancer medicine for the treatment of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Since then, you've been active in Europe. So can you tell us what's happening over there?
Yeah, thanks for asking. You're absolutely correct. In the interview that we did before, we discussed the regulatory strategy that we have, which started us out with a pre-filing meeting in Canada. And at that time, we discussed the fact that we were planning similar regulatory pre-filing meetings in Europe. So this announcement is to the effect that we've completed those meetings with the national medical agencies, and as was the case in Canada, we're moving forward now with a commitment to seek marketing approval with the EU. This is really important in terms of a milestone for Biovest because it's a second assurance that our regulatory strategy is happening right on schedule and as per its intended outcome.
So what is the sense then in when you would when you would get some regulatory approval in Europe?
Well, the target that we have, similar to Canada, is to file our application seeking marketing approval around the end of the year. And also similar to Canada, the EU is slightly less than a year-long process as they do their rigorous and comprehensive review of the marketing application.
Mm-hmm. So what is the significant from an economic point of view in terms of the EU market? I mean, how big a market is that for you?
Well, it's really significant in two ways. In one sense, and as your question inquires, the EU in its own is slightly larger market for us compared to the U.S. And when you compare the EU with Canada, it really is a substantial marketplace for us. That doesn't diminish our desire to also be marketing our drug in the U.S., but the EU is really exciting for us. It represents about 23,000 new patients diagnosed with follicular lymphoma each year. That number is growing. So unfortunately, the disease is continuing to expand, and it's a large market for us. Secondarily, the importance of the EU is, as I indicated earlier, is that our regulatory strategy marches on, and we couldn't be more excited that our carefully conceived strategy is advancing nicely for us.
Mm-hmm. So I know in your press release you had indicated that you're going to start pushing down field with the FDA. Can you tell us a little bit about what you see happening with the FDA?
Absolutely. We continue to be, with our regulatory strategy, we continue to be on task, and as we have said before, we expect to complete our pre-filing meetings with the FDA before the end of the summer. We are really excited about meeting with the FDA and discussing with them our regulatory developments that we have. You know, we started the development, the clinical development of Biovest almost 18 years ago, and this was it has been a very significant and I think positive public-private partnership between Biovest and the U.S. National Cancer Institute. And we're convinced that without the vision and the resources and the dedication of the NCI, a really forward-looking, perhaps paradigm-shifting therapy like this cancer vaccine for follicular lymphoma just wouldn't have been possible. So we are really excited about sharing our clinical data, which we believe is comprehensive and in-depth, with the FDA, and we look forward to their input and their thoughts and suggestions on the best way for Biovest to move toward marketing approval in the U.S.
So what makes Biovaccid unique from other cancer vaccines?
Yeah, I think I can take that. Brett, I think that's a wonderful question. As you know, cancer vaccines really have to be tailored towards treating cancer, and cancer is ultimately a personalized individual disease. It arises from a single cell, and as it develops, any cell in the body can become a cancerous cell, and eventually patients develop disease right now which becomes resistant. When you use one-size-fits-all therapy, you select for cancer cells that can escape, and so the push towards personalizing medicine has really been a push towards doing just that, treating cancer one patient at a time, treating their specific disease. Biovaccid is a cancer vaccine that uses a unique protein on its cell surface of the cancer. This is a survival protein. It's necessary for the cancer cells, in this case lymphoma cells, to survive, and importantly, it distinguishes those cells from other healthy cells in the body. So the marker is unique to each lymphoma patient, as unique as a fingerprint. And really, when we get a biopsy from a treating physician that has shipped us a tumor sample, we then can grow the patient's own tumor cells in a bioreactor that we've designed, the Autovaccid cell culture instrument, and then using those tumor cells, we'll manufacture this patient's own tumor protein to become the antigen in the vaccine. That vaccine is then applied to patients after they finish chemotherapy. Importantly, this isn't a vaccine that is a live cell preparation being shipped back to the patient, so it's actually a protein. It requires really a substantially less complicated management from the side of the physicians when they receive the vaccine, since it's not a live cell population, and for logistic purposes, it should really be a much more streamlined process of some of the other live cell vaccines that we've seen. And importantly, one of the features that distinguishes this from other cancers vaccine is the amount of clinical data that we've got in support of this. We've done now 2 phase 2 clinical trials with the National Cancer Institute and 1 phase 3 clinical trial that the National Cancer Institute also initiated, and then we collaborated with them in ACRETA. In those phase 2 clinical trials, we've measured the reaction of the immune system to the vaccine, and we reported T-cell responses that are able to recognize and kill the cancer cells in treated patients, and that now, over a decade later in follow-up, we've got the 2 trials that have really presented very promising data. We presented some data that shows that these responses to vaccine correlate to improved survival. That was presented at the ASH meeting last December, and then we're looking forward to presenting additional exciting new data at the ASCO meeting coming up in June. And then the big distinguishing feature for us is that we've got a phase 3 clinical trial that was randomized, it controlled, and it showed that the vaccine could extend the duration of remission in treated patients. So these are patients treated after chemotherapy in first complete remission, and the vaccine provided over a year improvement in that remission duration. So in terms of both the protein product we're delivering, and in terms of the wealth and the duration of the clinical data, it's really a unique product, and really be applicable, and it's extremely safe in treated patients.
Well, it sounds very promising. I know you also had talked about you engaged the Fragana Group to help look for and help you explore some of your partnering type arrangements. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. As we continue to progress in our development program, we now view ourselves as a late-stage biotech company as we have moved from the clinic now into the regulatory approval process. It's appropriate for us to be positioned to receive the best advice and input on partnering in other matters such as that. And we believe that the Fragana Group is best in class. We're really delighted to have them on side with us at this juncture. Beyond that, it's not appropriate for me to discuss Fragana other than just to acknowledge that the purpose of the press release was to indicate that they are our prime advisor in this regard.
Yeah, that's terrific. Well, it sounds like some exciting things happening at Biovest, and congratulations on your great progress.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you.
So that is Samuel Duffy, who is president, and Carlos Santos, who is the senior VP of Regulatory Affairs, has been talking about some of the developments at Biovest with their BioVaxit. Brett Johnson, New York City, signing off for OneMedRadio. Good day.